Well, hello, good morning. Today we're going to get a little bit different view of the shop. So anyway, whether you realize it or not, we are in the presence of British royalty. This is going to be part of a trilogy that I'm going to refer to as the British Invasion because, well, we've been besieged by British amplifiers, which is not a bad thing. So anyway, like I say, we've got some British royalty here. This is actually a 1970 PA-20 that was picked up recently. It's been a bit buggered here and there. But anyway, to let you know what's going on, you very rarely see one of these as a full set. The head is usually absconded with because the cabinets are really not that great for guitar, and guys love to make off with these amplifiers to use with a 212 or 412 cabinet. This is the second version of the small amplifiers that Marshall made. The 18 watt is an entirely different animal, and this one is a bit different, but very sought after. They've been used on a lot of recordings or a lot of collections. In fact, from what I understand, Gary Moore actually had two of these in his collection. So, yeah, we're out front. There's traffic noises. Anyway, the cabinets and the amplifier both have issues. The speakers actually have 10-inch Goodman speakers in them. Two of the speakers needing repaired. One was replaced. It's an 8 ohm. It should be a 16. The other one was just blown. So I'm in the midst of that, but that's a whole nother story that we're going to get into later. But today we're going to focus on getting this little head taken care of. So I'm going to move it to the back, get it on the bench, and we're going to start. This is going to be a good one. All right. Well, we have made it back here to the bench, and we're ready to get into this, but I thought we'd discuss this head a little bit more. Just a little bit of background on it. Marshall was very good at marketing. So one of the coolest things they did, like I said, Ken Brand and Jim Marshall had pretty good ideas about marketing. Just like starting their serial numbers at 1,000, so it looked like they'd already sold 1,000 amplifiers already. This amplifier is one of 4 very similar units. They made 4 different models. They made the lead 20, they made the bass 20, they made the lead bass 20, and they made the PA 20. All were the same amp. It had a different back panel silk screen, and there was a couple capacitors added to the lead model for bright. Other than that, they're the same. So these amps are EL84 based, tone and volume per channel, 2 inputs per channel. So there, a little bit of background. We're going to get into it. So here is your first look of the chassis out of the cabinet. And there's going to be comments made here that some people may not agree with, but suck it up. Anyway, first thing, the bolts were wrong. And that's not a problem. But what gets me is, you notice, we have cage nuts over here on this side of the chassis. Over here, we don't. In fact, this cage nut was upside down on here. There's actually a bolt missing up here. Apparently someone went to have tea or lunch or something and didn't bother to file these out for the cage nuts. And here's where one of the comments comes in. I have it on very good authority. A friend of mine had a conversation with Jim Marshall back years ago when he was visiting the factory. And he was told, frankly, anything went to get it out the door. So this is one of the first things we're going to take care of right here. When I start my demolition, I'm going to file these out and get the cage nuts in them and get that out of the way, so I've got all the file and metal work taken care of before I start working on electronics. Get that done. So anyway, yes, I have a bigger pointer. We'll go back to the old standby here. So anyway, big number one problem here, someone changed the power transformer. This is a very cheesy aftermarket transformer. We do have the original Drake here. This amp does not have an impedance selector, so you actually have to solder the lead for your speaker output, whichever terminal you want here for your ohmage. Like I said, it was EL84 based. If you look here, you can see we've got one broken one. One that's been very hot. Over here we have two of the original Mullard ECC 83s. Hopefully we can salvage those. Here's our date sticker. And assembly was complete, JB says. Anyway, so let's flip it over. Oh, there you go. There's your PA20. Here's your mains selector. This has multiple taps for various voltages from 110 to 240. And someone has scratched off the two lower voltages. This amplifier is actually connected for 240 at this point because that's what the transformer is that they replaced. The fuses are correct. Of course, there's your mains input. When we get over here on this side, you start to see where the butchering begins. These leads are for the other taps for the voltages that they didn't use. The transformer is completely wrong. The original had a center tap on your B+. So what they've done here, these are your two original diodes for the rectifier, but they've added two more here to make a bridge rectifier to make this transformer work. There's been some other stuff done. They've changed some capacitors and, you know, buggered up a few other things. But we're going to put this back together. I'm going to try to put this back as close as I can. Try to restore it to its pretty much original condition. We've had some sprags replaced over here and a few other things. But I've been looking forward to this. I've actually made me a really nice file for the 18 watts and the 20 watts. You'd think over the years I would have had a lot of this information already, but no. A lot of it was on a need to use situation. But that's not what we're doing now. So we're going to jump into this. I'm going to start taking stuff out of here. We're going to replace the transformer. Oh, hang on. Here we go. So my friends at Mercury have supplied me with a very nice exact replacement for the original transformer. And we added the hammer tone bell cover just because I thought chrome looked too obnoxious and it kind of hints at the old radio spare stuff. So, time to get on with it then. Here's something I forgot to mention. Here's an add-on somebody's added as well. Down here's a little trim pot on the heater leads that somebody's added for a hum balance control. That's going to go to. Okay, that takes care of that nasty little bit of business. This one down here is a little bit bigger. It's mine. It's American. But it is metric thread. So, okay, we've got that taken care of. Transformer's out. Got the leads clipped here. We're ready to start doing serious work. Someone has actually drilled extra holes and stuff in here. Thankfully, the new transformer is going to cover those up, but only on the outside, so it's unfortunate. So let's clean up our mess here. Got lots of filings and stuff to vacuum up, clean up here off the bench, and we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty on this. And just to get this out of the way, I have quite the little debris field here. I say, I've been working. I've been really busy. We have the transformer in and wired up. We have all that taken care of. We have the new F&T power supply caps in. Cleaned up a few other things here. Lots of lead cleaning up. Had a little disappointment. We found out that the pilot light is burnt out. Well, what's the problem with that? Well, it's a 6-volt pilot light. So I have to dig into my bag of tricks to fix that. And if you wonder, most of the replacements are 120. So let's flip it over here and let you see. Like I say, I've done a lot of lead work here. So let's flip it over and let's see the other side. So there we go. There's a nice little transformer, our F&Ts. That just amuses me. British engineering in the early 70s. Anyway, this actually is ready to run. I've checked it. All the voltages are good. We're looking real good. So I'm going to move on to the next stage. Well, we've got it up and running. The original Mullard preamp tubes look like they're going to be fine. I've cleaned the pots, stuff to clean the jacks. I've got a set of JJ's in it for the output tubes. But we've got a couple of little bugaboos going on here. One, our plate current is about 10 mils higher at idle per tube than I would like. The second issue is the screen current is about 3 times what it should be. Now these amps have no screen grid protection for current. So I'm going to add a couple screen grid resistors and see if that kind of tames things down a little bit. Then go looking elsewhere. Like I say, when you apply a signal to this, the screen current is 3 times maximum dissipation for the screen. So we don't like that. Neither do the tubes. Now the deal is, when these amps were built, they were meant to be used with, the original old English Brimar or Mullard tubes, which may have ran okay, and nobody was probably really pushing these amps that hard at that time anyway. But modern tubes just will not hold up in it. So we're going to do a few things here to try to make longevity of tube life a little bit better. Plus, just get this thing into where it's running at spec. It's Class A, but it's running way past that at this point. I think this should be running probably about 35 milliamps per tube. We're looking at close to 50 on the plate only. So I measure plate and screen current separately. So let the games begin here. Okay, let me catch you up here just a few. You can see I have a resistor tacked in here. Here's the The one that I do not think was original is too small. It's actually the right value. That's supposed to be like a 5-watt resistor. Actually, what I ended up doing was putting a 150 ohm resistor here for the cathode resistor to cool the tubes down. And here were the 2 screen grid resistors I added. We've got everything running kind of safe here now. I have to order a few things. Actually, I did not have a good 150 ohm resistor, so I'm going to order like a 5-watt ohmite or something there for that. We're going to also be tweaking the values of the cathode bypass cap for here and here. I've actually had this amp running and playing it. We've done a few other things too. Like I said, we've added brake caps that he requested to make it like the lead model on one channel. But like I say, I had it running. It sounds pretty good. I've been playing through it some. And I've moved over here to the other bench just simply because it's easier to do this, to show you what's going on. I'm going to turn my attention right now to a small problem we have. It's actually a big problem. Right here, our pilot light. I mentioned before that the pilot light wasn't working. Well, it seems to be intermittent. If I moved the leads in and out a couple times, it cut in and out and it actually worked. Now, since I'm ordering parts anyway, and I happen to be out of these, I have a trick. Now, I'm going to tell you flat out, with all honesty, I did not come up with this myself. This is a little trick that I learned from Ken Fisher's train wreck pages. Ken was one of my heroes. I never met the man, but he was very good about sharing information. If you're an amp guy and trying to learn to work on stuff, during my lust for knowledge in the 80s with amplifiers, early 80s, he had some pretty good information. There was a lot of really bad information out there. I highly recommend you read the train wreck pages. There's only a couple things on there that's not quite right. Like I say, I'm not saying I'm smarter than Ken Fisher. I'm just saying it's been disproven. So anyway, there's a huge amount of really good information there, especially on Marshalls. So anyway, one of his tricks was to take an X-Acto saw and saw carefully, very carefully, saw off the back. You see, I've got a line here marked. I've loosened this up just enough so I can spin it around some, so I can cut all the way around it. We don't want to take it out of the chassis. We don't want to take a chance on cracking or breaking this. We've got to be really careful. So we want to carefully saw down through this part way, spin it around, keep sawing. The line is so I can put it back together, because we're going to super glue it back together with a couple drops of glue. Hopefully, in this case, I can take it apart. I'm hoping the connections to the bulb are bad on one of the leads. I'm going to take it apart and see if I can reconnect that and put it all back together. If that's not the case, what I'm going to be doing is putting a 6-volt grain of wheat bulb in it, and then putting it all back together. From the outside, it'll look dead stock. Again, if you wonder why I'm going through this trouble, replacements are 120-volt bulbs. This is 6 volts. It runs off the heaters like a fender. Now, why can't you put a 120 in it? Well, because you have a voltage selector. This amp will run on anything from 100 to 240 volts. So, if you hook it up to the AC, you may have 240 volts on a 120 volt bulb. Plus, we want to keep it as original as possible. Yeah, I'm talking about changing things here, but this is all stuff you can change back. This is something you'll notice from the front of the amp immediately. Not so bad on these, but like on the early JTM 45s and stuff that had an entirely different bulb, you certainly don't want to replace it. So, what I'm going to do is get into this, start cutting this apart. Like I said, I got to be very careful. I was going to take the power switch out, but I could not get the nut off of it. Someone's either glued it or Loctited it on, and even with my specialty wrench, that fits these knurled nuts, I cannot get it apart. So usually I drop it out of my way, give me more room. This is going to be tight too. So we're going to be careful, and we're going to try to do this. And go very slowly. And say I've done this before a lot over the years. Well, we have it apart, and we've done all of our exploring. You can see back here how well this is going to fit back together. It won't take much to glue it back together. However, right here is our problem. One of the leads, where it comes right out of the glass, or on one side of the bulb, broke off right at the bulb. There's no way to reconnect it. This one I could resolder to. This one we can't get to. It snapped off right there at the glass. So, while I'm getting my order together, I'm going to get some 4.75 millimeter diameter, 20 millimeter long, 6.3 volt wheat bulbs. I used to keep them. Apparently I used the last one I had. So, okay, we're sidelined until we get some parts. Well, we're back. A parts order came in this morning. First thing I did was take one of my little bulbs out, solder it up on this, and heat shrink it. The gray tape you see is actually the original tape off the inside of the original bulb. So we're ready to put this in here and get it glued and get this part of it done. So I need both hands. So I'll show you how this works out in a minute. Okay, well, we have that little bit of ugliness done. And just to show you, ta-da! Now, get a few more parts in here. I have to put the resistor in that's correct here. I'm going to be tweaking the bypass capacitor here too. Got to replace these two caps and put a different bypass capacitor up here, because frankly it sounds a little woofy. And I think we're going to be just about done with this part of it. Well, alright. I believe we have the amp finished. I've done a little minor lead dressing up here, and there's not a whole lot of leads to deal with, but I brought the grids up off the chassis away from the heaters. We went to a 47 microfarad capacitor here for our bypass on the preamps. With an 820 ohm resistor, that takes us still below cutoff frequency range for guitars. We should be good there. You can see I've put in a couple mustard caps here that I acquired. He was concerned about the mustard caps not being in it. Unfortunately I only had 3, so I ended up putting 2 Mallorys here that are less obnoxious looking than orange drops. Where here you see the nice 5-watt resistor I added. I bumped this value up to 220. So basically what I've done is I took a lot of bass out of the front and put some back on the output stage. So we've added a bright cap here and here. So this channel acts like a lead model. So you can jump channels and stuff on now too. But anyway, we're all good here. We're ready to roll. I'm going to fire this up and check it out again. And this part of the job is done. So the next thing you're going to see is most likely progress on the speakers. Well, we're back. I've returned to the shop from my clandestine subterranean laboratory, and I emerged with two completely functional reconed speakers. As I mentioned before, these were Goodmans. They're not Celestions. Had to make some compromises. Years ago, when I started reconing speakers in the mid-70s, we had lots of speaker manufacturers, lots of part manufacturers. Most of those have gone by the wayside. So when you have something vintage like this, you have to actually sit down and figure out what goes in it. There was actually no listings for these speakers. Because one, if you look, there's no numbers anywhere. Nowhere. So what I did was I actually sit down, carefully cut the speakers apart. Here's one of the original cones, voice coil, spider, and all that, dust cover. You can see that one had edge treatment. This one did not. Again, same speakers. You never knew what you was going to get. So anyway, if you look at this cone, you'll see it's a nice little parabolic cone. They had an 1 inch and 20 thousandths inside diameter voice coil. So what I ended up doing was setting down, measuring stuff up, finding parts that fit. We'll pick that one up later. Anyways, and making this work. Actually, we ended up using a Celestion 10-inch cone that fit perfectly. All the rest of the parts we found pretty much off the shelf. The 1 inch and 20 thousandths voice coil was a little difficult. I actually used to have some of those when I first started making my original little 8-inch speakers. I actually used that same size voice coil. However, the ones I had in stock were 8. We needed 16 ohms. So I found a suitable replacement. So our next move is to get these in the cabinet, get things straightened up. We're winding this job down. Well, we have both our speaker cabinets rewired here, speakers replaced in them, phasing's been checked and all that. Little side note here I want to mention, these cabinets are even set for left and right side. So the one cabinet has the jack here, the other cabinet has it on this side, and then the speakers were actually turned 180 degrees too. So little British ingenuity there. Another thing I want to mention to you, I had to make a couple bolts. There was a few things that the owner was really worried about, having the wrong bolts in the cabinet and stuff. So I dug into my bag of tricks, found some of the same size old British transformer bolts thrown into my spare stuff, my stash, and I measured the length, cut it, cleaned up threads, and there you see the replaced bolts. No one would ever know. Looks totally stock. Can you tell which ones I changed? Okay, so I'm going to bolt this back together. This is going to finish up this amplifier. So I'll get these cabinets together, get the back on it here, and call it done. Okay, we're going to try to give you an idea of what this little guy sounds like. I have to make this quick. Department of Highways is setting up out front, so God only knows what they're going to be doing today. So I'm going to get this done before they start making noise. So I'm running this through a 212 cabinet with two English style speakers in it, shop cabinet, test cabinet. The volume on the normal channel is on 2. The tone control is halfway up. Now, this amp is going to be dark in this channel, and if you remember, I changed the cathode bypass caps, tweaked them a little bit to get a little bit more brightness in this amp, a little bit less bottom end, because as everybody remembers, the JMPs and all that with the normal channels are pretty much kind of muddy, kind of muffled. But anyway, so we'll give you an idea here. I've got a Les Paul in my hand, and I'm on the bridge pickup. So that gives you an idea of what we're doing. So anyway, pretty clean, you know, for a 20-watt Marshall. This amp really doesn't come to life to hit about 5 on the volume. Give you a range of the tone controls here. Oops, that was volume. I'm used to Fenders and Gibsons with the volume here and a tone here. So that's as bright as it gets on that channel. Okay, gives you an idea on that channel. Let's go to the slice and dice channel. Now, also, if you remember, the owner asked me to put the bright caps in this channel and make it like the lead model. So it's going to be very reminiscent of the brilliant channel in my old JMP. A lot brighter. That's maxed. It's a little loud in here. There you go. I hear trucks pulling in. I'm going to shut this thing down. Anyway, give you an idea what it sounds like. Little 20-watt PA20. And here we have our completed little Marshall out here in the finished pile, waiting to be picked up to go out the door. It is ready to exit the building. On top is his little bag of parts that I saved for him. And this one, it really cracks me up. I cannot believe he survived. Those are the original radio spares, unblown fuses. So he can save those to keep with it. So, there you go. Like I say, keep an eye on this channel. This is the first of 3 videos. Till next time,